Okay, welcome everybody to Christian Virtual Fellowship, a production of Allegiance to the King. You can find us online at allegiancetotheking.org. You can also find more information at a2kchurch.org. And we'll post these links down below the video or in the comments. If you're looking for a place to meet up with others who believe the Father is the one true God, and Jesus is his unique Son and chosen King of God's kingdom, please feel free to join us on Zoom. We meet Wednesday nights at 7:30 Eastern Time and Sunday mornings at 9:30 Eastern Time. Oh, my slide didn't change, but okay. So our funny sovereign, this is what we're going to be talking about. We're actually going to be talking about an interaction between Jacob and Esau when, Jacob, some people would say he stole the blessing from Esau. And so that's eventually what we're going to be getting to. But I think this account myself personally is quite funny if you look at it a certain way. But first, we'll talk about God's sovereignty. A sovereign is the one who exercises power without limitation. Sovereignty is essentially the power to make laws. The term also carries implications of autonomy. To have sovereign power is to be beyond the power of others to interfere. So let's read some scriptures. Psalms 115, 2 and 3 talks about God's sovereignty. Why should the nation say, "Where now is their God?" But our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. And Psalms 135, 4 and 5. For the Lord has chosen Jacob for himself, Israel for his own possession. For I know that the Lord is great, and that our Lord is above all gods. Whatever the Lord pleases, he does, in heaven and on earth, in the seas and in the deeps. And Isaiah 14, 24 to 27. The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely just as I have intended, so it has happened. And just as I have planned, so it will stand, to break Assyria in my land, and I will trample him on my mountains. Then his yoke will be removed from them, and his burden removed from their shoulder. This is the plan devised against the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out against all the nations. For the Lord of hosts has planned, and who can frustrate it? And as for his stretched out hand, who can turn it back? And Isaiah 43 and 13, even from eternity I am he, and there is none who can deliver out of my hand. I act, and who can reverse it? And so my word will go, so will my word be which goes forth from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, without accomplishing what I desire, and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. And one last one. This one is by Nebuchadnezzar. It's a pagan king speaking. But at the end of that period, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my reason returned to me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will in the host of heaven and among the inhabitants of earth. And no one can ward off his hand, or say to him, what have you done? So, yeah, this is from Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, he was humbled by Yahweh. He thought he was all that. He thought, well, I'm just going to do things my way. I made this wonderful kingdom. Look at Babylon. It's so wonderful and great. Aren't I great? And God humbled him. So he kind of had the idea like, hey, I did it my way. And when we think about Frank Sinatra or Elvis Presley singing this song, well, maybe it's a good song, but what he's saying is pretty prideful and arrogant. And really, there's only one person in the whole universe who's entitled to sing that song or to say something like that. And that would be Yahweh. Of course, I couldn't get a picture of him. So Yahweh is not beholden to men's culture and traditions. Just as men sometimes override tradition for good reasons, Yahweh always has the prerogative to override tradition whenever it should please him. Jacob, a man, overrode the tradition of the firstborn rights after he discovered Reuben had lain with his concubine Bilhah. Jacob gave the right of the firstborn to someone more deserving, to Joseph. And that's covered in 1 Chronicles 5, 1 and 2. Of course, it's covered in Genesis as well, but it specifically talks about how the right of the firstborn was lost to Reuben and given to Joseph. If men can override tradition when it pleases them, then God, the sovereign over all, can do so also. He is the only one who can ever rightfully say, I did it my way. So when God saw that Israel's first human king, Saul, did not remain obedient to his sovereignty, he sent the prophet Samuel to anoint a new king amongst the sons of Jesse. Well, why send Samuel to the sons of Jesse? Why not anoint a king from Saul's family line? That would be according to custom of kings and whatnot. But God had already decided previously that the royal line would come through Judah, and God had already chosen David. He had observed David's courageous and self-sacrificing manner in tending his father Jesse's sheep. And God was looking for a son to shepherd his people, his sheep. God commanded Samuel to go to Bethlehem with a horn of oil and to anoint the one that he would show Samuel. So not one of Saul's sons, but one of Jesse's sons. Samuel consecrates Jesse and his sons, and they are assembled before Samuel, but not all. There's somebody missing. David is such an unlikely candidate in their minds that he is not even brought in with the rest of Jesse's sons. So let's read that. When they entered, he, Samuel, looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Then Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the children? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he's tending the sheep. Then Samuel said to Jesse, Send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. So we see, just as God ignored the customs of men when choosing David to shepherd his people, he also consistently ignored this custom when it came to choosing prominent men in history who would be privileged to be ancestors of his ultimate shepherd and son, Jesus, the Messiah. He chose Abel over Cain. He chose Seth, Abel's replacement, over Cain. He chose Isaac over Ishmael. He chose Jacob over Esau. And that's what we're going to get to right away. He chose David over all his older brothers. He chose Solomon over his older brothers and others. And when Jacob chose Joseph over Reuben to have the right of the firstborn, it caused rivalry and jealousy and strife amongst the other brothers. But Joseph's God-given dreams proved that this choice of Jacob's was God's choice first. God chose Jacob to become the firstborn, even though his twin Esau would be born minutes sooner. This shows God's amazing foreknowledge in discerning how men will turn out. The rivalry and strife began between the twins Jacob and Esau while they were yet in the womb. We read about this. But first, you may be wondering, what does this have to do with humor? You said God is sovereign. He can do as he pleases. He can do it his way. But what's funny about that? Well, God is setting up a joke. He's setting up a situation comedy, decades in the making. The Bible says that when men make plans against God's will, he laughs from his throne. Psalms 2:4 says, the one enthroned in heaven laughs. Yahweh taunts them. And Psalms 37:12 and 13. The wicked plots against the righteous and gnashes at him with his teeth. The Lord laughs at him, for he sees his day coming. Is God setting up this joke over decades just for his enjoyment and laughter, or for ours too? Before we go further, we need to change some names so that they are in line with what the Hebrew names mean in English. From here on, we'll shorten Jacob's name. Let's call him Jack Tripper. Well, you see where I'm going there. Okay, let's just call him Tripper. Tripper the heel grabber. Esau will be called Hairy and Red, but mostly Hairy. Isaac will be called Laughter, and Rebecca will be called Ensnarer. Yeah, that's what her name means. So let's read this. And Laughter was 40 years old when he took Ensnarer, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. Laughter prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife, because she was barren, and Yahweh answered him. And Ensnarer, his wife, conceived. But the children struggled within her, and she said, if it is so, why then am I this way? So she went to inquire of Yahweh. Yahweh said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and two peoples will be separated from your body, and one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. God had a plan. It didn't go along with the way things usually went with men. When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Harry. Afterward, his brother came forth with his hand holding on to Harry's heel, so his name was called Tripper. And Laughter was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. When the boys grew up, Harry became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Tripper was a peaceful man, living in tents. Now Laughter loved Harry because he had a taste for game, but Ensnarer loved Tripper. When Tripper had cooked stew, Harry came in from the field, and he was famished. And Harry said to Tripper, "Please let me have a swallow of that red stuff there, for I am famished." Therefore, his name was called Red. You may know it as Edom, which is very similar to the Hebrew word Adam, but it means red. But Tripper said, "First, sell me your birthright." Harry said, "Behold, I am about to die. So of what use then is the birthright to me?" And Tripper said, "First, swear to me." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Tripper. Then Tripper gave Harry bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went on his way. Thus Harry despised his birthright. Yeah, Esau really blew it there. Just for a bowl of stew, he didn't think that birthright was something sacred, but it was. And so God foreknew, I guess, that Esau was going to be a person like this, and it's probably why he prophesied what he did and made plans the way he did. But let's keep reading through the story here as it continues. Now it came about when Laughter was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called his older son, Harry, and said to him, "My son." He said, "Here I am." Laughter said, "Behold, I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Now then, please, take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare a savory dish for me, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat it, so that my soul may bless you before I die." Laughter knew better. He knew that God had told Ensnarer that those children that were battling inside her, he told her that the younger would be the one to receive the blessing. He told her that the older would serve the younger. And Isaac, of course, knew this. And Isaac, of course, must have known that Esau had sold his birthright to Jacob, or Harry had sold his birthright to Tripper. Ensnarer was listening while Laughter spoke to his son Harry. So when Harry went to the field to hunt for game to bring home, Ensnarer said to her son Tripper, "Behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Harry, saying, 'Bring me some game and prepare a savory dish for me, that I may eat and bless you in the presence of Yahweh before my death.' Now, therefore, my son, listen to me as I command you. Ensnarer knew what God wanted and acted on it. Now, go now to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats from there, that I may prepare them as a savory dish for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall bring it to your father, that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death. Tripper answered his mother Ensnarer, behold, Harry, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me. Then I will be as a deceiver in his sight, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. So you see, we really people like to blame all this on Jacob and call him a deceiver and all that, but we're not really thinking about what was God's plan. And Jacob was being obedient to his mother. He was listening to her command. And we'll see that he's not really a liar either. Then Ensnarer took the best garments of Harry, her elder son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Tripper, her younger son. And she put the skins of the young goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. She also gave the savory food and the bread which she had made to her son Jacob. So the stage is set. Then he came to his father and he said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Tripper said to his father, I'm Harry, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Get up, please. Sit and eat of my game, that you may bless me. Laughter said to his son, how is it that you have it so quickly, my son? And he said, because Yahweh your God caused it to happen to me. Then Laughter said to Tripper, come, please, come close, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really hairy or not. So Tripper came close to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is the voice of Tripper, but the hands are the hands of Harry. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Harry's hands. So he blessed him and he said, are you really Harry, my son? And he said, I am. Yeah, I am. Where's it? I lost my spot. He said, bring it to me, and I will eat of my son's game, that I may bless you. And he brought it to him, and he ate. Also he brought him wine and he drank. Then his father Laughter said to him, please come close and kiss me, my son. So he came close and kissed him, and when he smelled the smell of his garments, he blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field, which Yahweh has blessed. Now, may God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, and an abundance of grain and new wine. May peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master of your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be the ones who curse you, and blessed be the ones who bless you. So God set up his joke, his situation comedy, by first choosing the younger before the older, before they were even born. Next, by making the firstborn come out covered in hair, maybe even red hair. By having the youngest come out grabbing the heel of the oldest. By ensuring they would be given appropriate names. by foreknowing that laughter would go against his wishes, by foreknowing that ensnarer would be his instrument to bring his will about. God foreknew that Tripper would be able to legally acquire the right of firstborn from Harry, one who did not value sacred things. It's funny because Tripper didn't really lie. He was truly Harry when he presented himself for the blessing. Tripper didn't lie when he identified himself as the firstborn because he had purchased this title from Harry. And in the end, Laughter realizes that what has happened was God's will, in spite of his steps to work against it. Let's finish the account and then open this up for discussion. Now it came about as soon as Laughter had finished blessing Tripper, and Tripper had hardly gone out from the presence of Laughter, his father, that Harry, his brother, came in from his hunting. Then he also made savory food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." Laughter, his father, said to him, "Who are you?" He said, "I am your son, your firstborn, Harry." Then Laughter trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, so that I ate all of it before you came, and blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." When Harry heard these words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." And he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and has taken away your blessing." Then he said, "Is he not rightly named Tripper? For he has grabbed me by the heel these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" But Laughter replied to Harry, "Behold, I have made him your master, and all his relatives I have given to him as servants. And with grain and new wine I have sustained him. Now, as for you then, what can I do for you, my son?" Harry said to his father, "Do you have but one blessing, father? Bless, bless me even also, O my father." So Harry lifted his voice and wept. Then Laughter, his father, answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling, and away from the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. But it shall come about when you become restless that you will break his yoke from your neck." So, in conclusion, God is sovereign, therefore, he does whatever pleases him. He does it his way. When men make plans that are opposed to God's purposes, he simply laughs from his throne. He can always turn a bad situation into the outcome he originally desired. He chooses men for prominence based on their current hearts and their future hearts, which he has an amazing foreknowledge of. If you value sacred things, it will help you stay out of hairy situations. Okay, so let's open this up for discussion here. If I can get rid of this. This is crazy. There we go. I can see my screen again. Okay. We're still recording. We'll take a few questions. I don't know, Ray. I just see you there, and I'm not. Well, if anybody has any comments or anything, can put up their hand.
What a story.
story.
I loved
I
it.
don't,
You had me mesmerized.
well, it's a little difficult to read when you're used to reading it a certain way and you're used to the names being a certain way. But I think,
I
when
love
you,
it. Yeah,
I love it anyway. I
I
don't
loved
know.
it. I
I
thought it
thought
was
it was,
great.
I thought it was funny. Yeah, I know it's a little unusual, but I guess that's me. I
Well,
really like to bring out things from the Old Testament and to try and get a better understanding and a better grip on what's happening in the Old Testament and what kind of patterns they're setting for the things that happen in our time or in Jesus' time or in the first century Christians' time. So I think it can really help us to understand. Dan?
Yeah, um, Greg, I gotta say, I love the way you told that story, man. It's just I love your insight. It's almost like you have this very soft-spoken voice, but yet it's humorous. I just love the way that and Harry and Tripper but it's true. That's why it's so cool. And it I gotta say, you just really got me thinking because you gave me some new insights into how God was setting this thing up and the comedy and behind it. And it was really good. I just appreciate it, brother. Appreciate your style. And I really like the format that I could see you in full view and see the
Yeah, smaller slides and I
yeah, I really
really
like.
wanted to try that. I was so frustrated in the beginning there when
Yeah.
I don't even know how I got it working, but I'll have to I'll do it the same way next time now that I can see how I can make it work. But it didn't really work the way I was expecting it to work, the way I'd kind of practiced it. But
I don't know how you did it, but I liked it, and I have to figure out how to do that. That was cool.
yeah, you can use OBS Studio, and so what it does is it it
It's like in a Sunday school, Greg.
oh, what was that, Edgardo?
It's like in a Sunday school.
Yeah, in a Sunday school, we're acting it out.
The
Well, you know
teacher
what?
the,
I,
the teacher is standing beside the whiteboard.
Yeah.
I think it would make a great skit if you had that done in costumes and stuff. I think it
Well,
would be fun. I,
how easy it would be in life too if we all had names like Tripper. And I mean, it might be something we really don't want, but it's like, yeah, I wonder what God's name for me would be. You know?
yeah, I know. I wonder if the name Ensnarer was made after the fact or if this was somehow prophetic or whatever. I don't know. But that's an unusual name for sure. Ray, you have your hand.
Yeah, the way you told the story with laughter and ensnarer and tripper, it kind of brought to mind that most people back then did not know how to read. They would be hearing
Yeah.
the story read to them. And so what would they hear? They would hear the name Isaac, meaning laughter,
Yeah,
and Jacob meaning, well, perhaps Tripper or some other name, and then Rebecca, ensnarer,
yeah,
and and it's kind of interesting because at the start of the record, when you start reading it, you wonder to yourself, why is the woman called ensnarer? Why is Jacob called laughter? I mean, or Isaac would be called laughter. And so it just kind of adds to the drama of the story. And it is kind of funny in a sense when you're using those words to name those people. It'd be like if I were to name the Keystone Cops by different names, you know, at, to one clumsy and one sleepy and one whatever happy or whatever. So anyway, it's I thought it was a very interesting approach to substitute the names out to give them the meaning. And then the deeper meaning of how God has his way, and he's an all-wise God, and how despite what man does, despite the fact that Isaac preferred his firstborn, which kind of reminds me of Joseph, how Joseph uh, preferred his firstborn, and yet it was Jacob who, yes, switched his arms, just as Dan
Free him over
signaled
Manasseh.
there. Yeah, he switched his arms so that the younger son would be preferred over the older son. And in this situation with Isaac preferring Jacob over Esau, it's very reminiscent of that. And then perhaps how you ended it with the overarching theme is that God will take a bad situation and turn it into something that glorifies him and furthers his purpose. And so so
Yeah.
we're definitely on a winning team.
Like what he did
comes
with
to that.
Joseph in Egypt and all that. I mean, it was probably his plan. Well, it was his plan all along because you can tell by the way that he gave Joseph those dreams that
Yeah.
that was the plan. It was
Yeah.
I just find it I find it very interesting, and I really appreciate like when other brothers and stuff talk about things in the New Testament and things that maybe I haven't thought of before. And like we all have a different angle on things. So I don't know. I love the book of Genesis.
Well, it's really foundational, it really is. And so I can't get enough of it. And the more points of view I hear about Genesis, the more I appreciate the wisdom and how God has blessed us with that book.
I wonder if we should stop the recording and then we can just keep talking amongst ourselves here.
If you'd like me to, I will.
Sure.